director of the College and University Food Bank Alliance, and I'm a senior program officer with Single Stop, which is a national nonprofit. And I've been doing a lot of thinking because I've been here now listening to all the different people, all the different research, all the different information. And at the beginning of our time together, we were asked to think about the big questions. And this morning, we were reminded of that by Rick Sloan. And if you haven't read the piece in Inside Higher Ed, I recommend checking it out. His big question is, what's next? What are we going to do? And I get to be up on stage here with the Food Justice League, who are really focusing on what do we do, what's next, how do we deal with this issue of food insecurity. And so I'm going to start my talk with a story about my own life. In 2010, I became unemployed, and I had to make a choice. The choice I had to make was, do I keep my car and use it to find work, or do I sell it so that I don't have this big car payment and I can pay my rent? And I chose the car, which meant that I lived in my car. And I did that for about 8 months. And when I took the job, so my job before I was working with Single Stop, was at Oregon State University at the Human Services Resource Center, which is an incredibly innovative program that was started by students at Oregon State, focused on poverty, hunger, homelessness, alleviation for the students on the campus. And you're going to get to hear more about that later today. When I took that role, I had actually been experiencing some of the things that students that I was working with had experienced. But in order for me to get into my job, I had to get fingerprinted for a background check. And so I was in my hometown, went to the police station, I asked for fingerprinting. They told me that they just needed me to fill out this form. The form asked where I lived, and I said, well, I don't actually have an address. And they said, oh, you don't have an address. Well, then you're going to need to go to the county seat because we can't fingerprint you here. So I went to the county seat. Fortunately, I had a car. This is central New York. We don't have public transportation in rural New York. Went there, and they went to go get fingerprinted, and I wised up, and I lied to them, and I told them my address that I had been previously living in, and they said, oh, well, that's out of state. We can't actually fingerprint you. You need to go to Syracuse. So I get in my car again, and I go to Syracuse, and when I get there, I wised up a little further, so I lied to them again, and I tell them my parents' address in Hamilton, and they say, oh, okay, well, we'll fingerprint you. What is it for? I said, I got a job at Oregon State University. They said, oh, we thought you got a job at Syracuse University. We can't fingerprint you. It'll cost $75. And I said, I don't have $75. I'm living in a car. At which point they kind of escorted me not so gently out of the space. The big question that came from all of this, eventually I did get my fingerprints, and eventually I did get to go work at HSRC at Oregon State. But the big question that came from me about this is, my story is not one of sort of success, right? I'm doing well, things are going great for me now, but my story is actually one of privilege. Because I was going through this huge experience, but I had a resume, I had a master's degree, I was well-spoken, I'm able-bodied, I speak English, I had a family support network who were backing me. So my ability to move through this and to get through this situation really rested on my privilege. Came from a middle-class background as well. And so the big question is, if it was that hard for me, how hard is it for somebody who doesn't have those advantages? And when I went to work at Oregon State, I was working with students, and they were sitting across from me, and they were telling me all the stories that we've been hearing about. And we started to dig deeper into this. And this is in 2011. So we're not talking about, nobody's talking about it. And so we started looking into information, and we started finding these little tiny snippets of information. Some of this stuff that's now been compiled and built upon, and we are starting to get a picture of the issues around food insecurity in college students. And we saw this discrepancy between 14% food insecurity in our general population and 22 to 59% on college campuses. So that really pushes me to the next big question, which is what's going on in higher education? What's happening? Is the act of going to school causing these people to be food insecure? Are we not paying attention to food insecurity in a way that we should be in our general population? And maybe it's actually higher? Is that what's going on? So that's another big question. And then the big question after that is, what do we do about it? And so as I was working at Oregon State, I partnered with a colleague at Michigan State University, and we founded the College and University Food Bank Alliance, or CUFBA. And we initially founded it because no one was talking about the issue, and we just wanted to talk. And we started looking for other people to talk to and realized there just weren't that many, because this was really not something people were paying attention to. This was not a conversation that people were having in higher education, and some of that pushback we've been talking about in the last day or so really was the norm. The norm was, oh, well, sure, they're poor college students, they drink too much beer, and now they have to eat ramen. And I struggled too, it was hard for me, so I don't really see why we need to be dealing with this issue. But we started to find people who were interested in the issue and were seeing what was happening. And so, as we were working with those folks, we realized actually what they needed was help. They didn't want to talk, they wanted to do something, and we were already doing something, so they wanted to replicate it. And so our work with CUFBA really went from 15 schools that joined us in 2012 when we opened, and now we're over 300. So we have 300 schools that we've helped or are helping to develop programs to address food insecurity, specifically campus pantries, although we definitely look at other things as well. And then through that work, I got connected with Single Stop, which is a national nonprofit. It's focused on anti-poverty. We work with community-based organizations, we work with veterans organizations, and we have a college initiative. And since 2009, that college initiative has helped over 180,000 students and has connected them with $327 million. Because out there, as we've been talking, we know that out there's a lot of money available for people. And all we need to do is try and simplify people being able to get it. And there's just a tremendous potential there. And there's a tremendous potential for us to move people forward towards economic stability. And I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here. But in some ways, there's these two organizations that are really focusing on that. And I'm really proud to be a part of those. And so I want to circle back to that big question that Wick has posed to us, that what's next question. And I think that for me, it drives me to another question that ties into this research agenda, and it drives me towards some of the work that I'm hoping to be doing, which is how do we combine the things? How do we combine these efforts? How do we work together to combine and create a collective impact? Because food pantries aren't enough. Food stamps alone may not be enough, but there's a lot of different opportunities for us. So.
Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing today? Good? Do me a favor, y'all. Stand up. Go to someone next to you that's nearest by you. Stand up, stand up, stand up. If you are not able to stand, just signal for somebody to come closer to you. We have to be able-bodied accessible here. Do me a favor, go next to someone, and I want you to shake hands, and I want you to palm your handshake. Go ahead, go up to someone. Don't look at me, go up to someone. Shake their hand and palm each other with both hands, fully connect. And now everybody look over here. Everybody look up here. I want you to say these words. I want you to say, I'm grateful for your journey and thank you for being here. I wanted to start with a little bit of a gratitude exercise, and I wanted y'all to have an opportunity to move out of your seats, to move your bodies a little bit, because over the last 2 days, it consistently got affirmed how much I've been dreaming of this space and that we're finally here. Because for such a long time, a lot of people made us feel that we were alone. A lot of people made us, suffer in silence either when we were students or suffer in silence when we were staff or faculty or administrators that were supporting students at an ad hoc level and trying to figure out how do we do this better. And there's no way that we can be the only ones that are doing this. And this space affirms that. We've never been alone. We've just been isolated. We've been disconnected. And I think this is a point of connection. This is a point of family coming together. So I only have a couple minutes, but I do want to share a little bit of my story as well with you all so that you can trust a little bit some of the conversations I'm going to be having. So I come from a first-generation college background. How many of you are first college either goers or graduates? A couple of us, okay. I had the privilege of receiving a full-ride scholarship to go to Berkeley called the UC Regents' Chancellor Scholarship, which is a very high-profile scholarship. And while I had that scholarship, I was also one of the few students that when I got it, I had to ask the question of, what's the difference between Cal and Berkeley? Because everybody keeps congratulating me for getting into Cal, and I'm getting hella pissed because I got into Berkeley, not Cal. I had no idea where I was or what it meant to be there. I had to learn what it was to be a first-generation, low-income, Regents' Chancellor Scholar recipient at Berkeley or Cal, whatever you prefer. Shout out to our quarterback that just went #1 in the NFL draft. As a side note. Yeah, there you go. Go everybody. This is one family. Everybody. Okay, so going into this conversation, I'm here to have a conversation about what we got going on in the UC system. I don't want to assume that people know what the UC system is. We are 10 campuses, 5 medical centers, 3 national labs, 150 academic disciplines, 600 graduate degree programs. Student populations as of fall 15 is 198,000 undergraduates. We have 32,000 academic graduate students and 20,000 professional graduate students, about 198 employees and 1.7 million living alumni. So when I speak about the efforts that we got going on, I want you to put that into context. And shout out to the folks from the UC system that were able to make the trip here. And shout out to Hope Lab for getting us to be here today. I'm grateful for everybody. So the next slide, there you go. So I want to frame a little bit, but I don't want to spend too much time in framing because I feel like every single person in this room gets it, right? I want to make the point here that when we talk about college affordability, the majority of the mainstream conversation has to do with tuition and fees, and we're not talking about cost of living. And I see a lot of people like saying, yes, I got you all, we're going to do a lot of humming as a choir. That's what I'm talking about, okay? I know you already know this, but it's important for us to point that out and to visualize it so folks can see that consistently cost of living has always been most expensive, so why have we never talked about it? Second is, when we talk about UC affordability and we talk about net cost, we need to educate our youth that there's a difference between total cost, cost of fees and tuition, cost of living, and then net cost, which is what they're actually gonna have to pay, which we do not do. That's why the sticker shock is so drastic with our youth, whether they are in high school or community college, because we don't translate this into a language that makes sense to them. So the net cost, and what I'm showing you all here is where the UC system campuses are against, compared to other national organizations, which you see is across the spectrum. Berkeley being the most expensive net cost, and UC Merced being the least expensive because UC Merced is one of the few campuses that has a cost of living below the national average and below the California average. The next thing I want to show you all is how the UC system is still very, very competitive in terms of providing education that is high quality, that students graduate with minimum debt compared to national averages. You see us in dark blue there, the UC average, compared to public universities, compared to private nonprofits, and compared to private for-profits. We're doing pretty great in terms of us comparing ourselves. And in terms of equity and success, Native American, Black, and Latino students make up about 27% of our total populations across the UC. 38% of them are Pell Grant recipients, and about 38% of them are also first-generation college goers. 38 to 42, I believe the newest figure is 42. The 6-year graduation rate is also very competitive. Our non-Pell Grant recipients are at 84.8%, and our Pell recipients are 82.9%. So our folks are succeeding, and they're not just succeeding within the UC system. What I'm showing you here is also the Pell Grant performance after graduation and their earnings across these different disciplines: public admin, healthcare, education, finance, insurance, engineering services, business services, internet and computer sciences, and all industries. You see that we're consistently doing better as our graduates are going into the industry. So I want to start with that because I want to start with some love, and I want to start with some gratitude, and I don't want to come up in here and say everything is burning down. We are doing some great stuff, and the UC system has a lot to pat themselves on the back as an engine for social mobility and success. Absolutely. There's more that we can be doing. Our population differences between the state and our UC system are very different. Let's not get into that conversation because that's a very different conversation. Okay, brother, let's go to the next one. There you go. Now, what those statistics do not show is what's happening in the day-to-day life that produces those statistics. What I want to show you all here is something that came directly from one of our students. Living in UC City is extremely expensive and makes staying at the UC difficult. Rent prices are so high that I often find myself having to limit the amount and quantity of food that I am able to purchase. Yes, financial aid helps, but dining out all the time is not an option, and cooking all the time is nearly impossible because of schoolwork and my jobs. Working 2 jobs take up most of my time. How many of you all know at least one person or can believe that at least one person has said that before? Raise your hands. Look around this room. Don't look at me. Look around this room. Beautiful. Put your hands down. Thank you so much for participating. I'm still moving your bodies, y'all. Next slide. Okay, so what does that actually translate to? This is the data for average cost of living at every single UC campus as compared to the state average, which California continues to be in the top 5 of most expensive states to live in the country. So if we are above average in California, we're well above average across the country. The majority of our campuses are above that with the exception of Santa Barbara, Riverside, and Merced. Next slide. Oh, one more. Behind. There you go. You already know this. The national household average of food insecurity is 1 in 7 households. And in the studies that have come out, which is 8 to 9, so I believe 9, 10, now recently with the University of Illinois system yesterday publishing, or the week before publishing, it's 1 to 4 or 3 to 4 depending on which study you're looking at. So college student food insecurity is very high. How did we start asking that question in the UC system? Back in 2010 was the first time that we asked students in our UC Undergraduate Experience Survey, how frequently do you skip meals in order to save money? From 2010 to 2013, the data remained consistent. 24.1 occasionally skip meals, 11.1 somewhat skip meals, and 14.8 often and very skip meals, very often. Next. So what we looked at was, out of those students that say that they were skipping meals at different frequencies, how many were on need and non-need based financial aid? To demystify the notion that it's only the poorest of the poor students that are struggling with basic need insecurity. We wanted to investigate that, and lo and behold, we found out that it's not just the lowest of the low. It is not just the students that are financial aid. It is everybody up in there are struggling with figuring out how to make this happen and are having to consistently skip meals. Next slide. So, given the success metrics that we have and the data that continues to show how much students are thriving, quote unquote, in the UC system, but at the same time, students are saying that they're struggling with their day-to-day lives and their basic need security. The questions are, what is our student experience metrics? How do we measure what we want our students to experience when they come into the UC system beyond just the academic experience? And in that, why is basic need security so prevalent if our experience metrics is based on the student experience? And how do we make it better? So with that, next. The Global Food Initiative was launched by President Napolitano. The Global Food Initiative was launched across all of our campuses. These are the main points that we're told that we're supposed to tell you all. So I'm going to tell you all those points, or else I get in trouble, even though nobody's recording this, so that's great. UC leadership and global food issues, that's what we aspire to. We want to address how sustainability nutritiously feed a world population expected to reach 8 billion by 2025. Brings together all 10 UC campuses across the UC Agriculture and Natural Resources and Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. Aligns UC's research and operations to develop and export solutions of food security, health, and sustainability, and draws on the leadership in agriculture, medicine, nutrition, public policy, sciences, humanities, arts, and law, among others. It's all hands on deck in this effort. when we started having this conversation, we were asked, Tim and myself, to organize a conversation around food pantries. Because Tim and I had been doing work already for years around basic need security and food systems, we pushed back and said, food pantries are not the solution to this conversation. And if you want to do a truly innovative and transformative effort, we need to talk about food access and security and the basic needs of it as a systems level, all the way down to the day-to-day experience of our students. It took us about a year. I'm never going to lie to y'all, and I'm never going to romanticize. That shit was a struggle, and it was real. Sorry for cussing, but you know. Okay, so now, in that year, what we did was, we literally had to travel to every single campus. We had to knock on doors and meet with people and say, the president sent me to have this conversation with you. That's what worked the best. When we tried going the moral route, no answer. When we tried to go the academic route, even less. But when we said President Napolitano expects a report by the end of this summer, everybody started opening up the doors. Now we have conversations where our team, our UC system-wide committee, has the actual president's staff working with us, the vice president of student affairs at the systems level, the financial aid leadership that includes the director, the committee that makes the decisions, and the cost of attendance team that produces the survey that measures the cost of attendance for students, the VP of institutional research and academic planning, UC Berkeley's graduate division that oversees all of the graduate data for the system, and us created an actual food access and security committee that involves student leaders, staff, faculty, admin, and community experts. And it's all being grounded on student leaders being involved in having this conversation in elected and non-elected positions. It literally takes everybody. I want y'all to notice that in this conversation, everybody's at the table. And it's difficult. It's vulnerable. It takes a lot of courage, and it takes a hell of a lot of emotional intelligence. Thank goodness I grew up with nothing but women around me, because they taught me how to be emotionally intelligent. Because there are so many egos in the room, because everybody's under so much pressure, and everybody's always under so much critique, and everybody's always so much stress that you gotta call people in. That's something that I wanna leave with you all. We need to move from calling people out to calling people in to have these conversations and building with one another. I call it village building. You're welcome to call it whatever you want. And finally, on the last slide, how much time do I have? Like a minute? 30 seconds? Okay, cool. So, this is what I referenced yesterday. I don't know how many of y'all were at yesterday's lunch when I asked a really long question, pointing out a lot of things, because I was recruiting, because I don't know who's in the room. I don't know who's in the room and who's already thinking about it at the systems level, so I wanted to tease the audience a little bit, and a lot of you followed up, so thank you so much. But this is what's really happening. There are intersectional challenges that are happening at the micro to the macro level that I just want to name and map out. We can spend the entire conference on this. But I want to show this. We already talked about it. Students, actually, let me test this out. How many of you all went to a K-12 system or community college system where the critical mass of students were mandated to learn about personal finance, basic cooking skills, nutrition education, and health and wellness? Stand up nice and proud if you went to a K-12 or community college system that you were mandated to learn all of, mandated, not optional. That means every single one of the students in your school graduated with all of those skills. Look around this room.
What's the list?
You said what?
Say the list again.
Personal finance, basic cooking skills, nutrition education, and health and wellness. We got 1, 2, 3. We got 3 folks. Thank y'all so much. Can we give it up for them? Shout out to the 3 folks up here. That didn't happen for us. Food is the money generator on campuses. Don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. We need to look at the contracts, we need to look at those conversations and say, how are we making sure that there's a balance between generation, revenue generation, and security? Next is institutional structures to engage our campus food system. How many of you have a vice provost or a vice chancellor or an executive director of your campus food system? Raise your hand. I'm not talking about the portfolio mentions it, I'm talking your responsibility is the campus food system. Raise your hand. Great. I'm still not lying. 4th, competing funding priorities at the campus and UCOP levels. Strict local, state, and federal policies, even if we wanted to provide more to students, there's policies that prohibit us from doing that. Focused engagement with levels of government and at the same time lacking cross-sector engagement. That's why yesterday's panel with the federal entities was beautiful. Starting to see that cross-sector conversation is essential. And the last two things is institutional and system and government, state and federal dis- and reinvestment of public higher education. Those are all the conversations that are happening at the same time in every conversation that we're talking about basic need security at a public higher education level. And I'm gonna leave it there, because that's just framing for you all to now give it off to my brother Tim, who's going to talk to you about how have we designed our model, our UC system-wide model, that over the next 4 years we're being held accountable to institutionalize so it continues to sustain solutions in the UC system. Thank you all so much for your attention.
I don't have the power projection of Ruben, I suppose, so we'll use the mic here. So just as a backdrop for my short story and how I got involved in a lot of food system work as a student, I worked to mobilize a system-wide sustainable food policy that to this day I co-chair a network of over 10 campuses and 5 medical centers to shift over $28 million of buying for fair, local, ecological, sustainable food procurement in the UC system. But that work involved a lot of sweat and tears, a lot of education, a lot of regions meetings, a lot of power mapping, and understanding how to organize. But within that, that was a meal plan system. And then in 2011, I looked at my student organizers come to me and say, well, Tim, you know, the summer's coming up, and I don't have any financial aid. I can't even buy groceries. I have a number of other friends that are documented that their families are struggling. What can we do about this farm on the campus and food they're growing and how can we get it? And we began an informal conversation with financial aid and student leaders and created 48 CSA boxes to support their families. It began to make me more aware of those that aren't having meal plans, that aren't guaranteed a meal anytime they want to swipe it, and a large level of insecurity in our system itself. I don't know if the slide is ready to move on into the PowerPoint. Oh, that's fine. Yeah, we can start again. So just to pick up where Ruben left off, I think we have a deeper vision of what we want to undertake. So the first year of the Global Food Initiative, the President's Office contributed over $3 million across projects. We first asked for $10,000 for a best practice toolkit for food pantries and campus engagement. And a colleague of mine asked for $250,000 and got it. And I said, what? There's no ceiling, we don't know anything about this, so we went and asked for $840,000. They said, sure. So it gave us a little bit more money, and I'll tell you, the money mobilized the people and the leadership of our working groups on every UC campus. Because we could give them $75,000 to plug staffing holes, to increase their procurement of food for short days pantries, and contribute to a bigger modeling system. And we brought them back to UC Santa Cruz last summer and asked, what would a model look like? And what are the key pieces of that to really introduce a transformative food and basic needs security effort in the UC? And so we've had a year almost of engaging and developing that model. And this is kind of a student messaging approach. So Ruben raised that question for UC, how many people have financial literacy, health and wellness, food provisioning skills, and understanding how to budget and manage their life? Not many do. And so we understand, yes, it's great to have a pantry, it's great to have programmatic support on campuses, but we need to have resources and materials for our recruitment engines to go into high schools and non-traditional student recruitment mechanisms across the state, and understand how to support them before they even apply to UC, before they get in. And then when they get there, they have to understand what does the financial aid package mean. When they accept, when they decline a loan, and now they can no longer pay their rent, and suddenly they're sleeping in their car, and they can't afford to get food, and they're in a crisis situation. So we really have to be upstream as a system and as a community thinking more broadly nationally about how we prepare young people for the types of systems in which they have to pay, and in some ways give a lot of themselves, and hopefully not lose themselves in all that giving. So within the system itself, though, I think initially, again, the President's Office was hoping that we would focus on pantries. But that's just a little bitty part down the way. Our first vision is how we restructure financial aid in our holistic model, working with the formula itself and cost attendance, because for the last 5 years, housing and food has not gone up in the formula. But if you live in California and you're a student paying rent, your rent has gone up a lot, probably $500 to $700 in the last 5 years per month. So we're needing to take that into account. And so that's a kind of exciting systemic approach and an element of our system-wide coordination that Ruben and I are bringing to the initiative. And then there's TALFRESH, which, as I raised the question yesterday, is really confused county officers, enrollment partners, and financial aid. Does it count? Does it not count? We're going to introduce a policy to the system that's very clear that it is action plan meetings and connecting with other services, and kind of building that vision of off-campus partners to help solve this problem. And then we realized that on campus itself, it is that education, those type of workshops that we're going to be offering and have been on many of our campuses, our teaching patients, our food provisioning, our financial wellness and literature material, our health and wellness, and our resources to kind of help channel students in ways that help build their skills. So in our coming model of our phase 2 work, we're really unfolding a commitment of a number of these workshops across every campus on a recorded and evaluation-based basis. And then we have the campuses, because we realize these campuses are actually a community space. They're not just hidden by the administration's account, they want them hidden like a student garden. But in the area where the alumni and visitors are going to see, it could be a closet, it could be on the base floor of student activities building. But really, we're calling for more visibility and engagement. And we're seeing that with more dignity and more support and more empowerment for students running and holding these spaces, a choice space that's bringing welcoming support for students in crisis and need. And it creates an important level of their culture. So we really don't see that ever going away, but we see that as part of a bigger approach for problem solving. And then ultimately, crisis teams, our campus crisis teams need to understand the resources at their disposal. Other campuses that they can channel students to and effective needs. So that kind of single point of contact concept, kind of building in a flow and a resource flow for each of our campuses. So we can go to the next slide. All right, so there's a lot here. I'd like to start in the upper left-hand quadrant with the research and curriculum. And specifically, Ruben had noted our undergraduate student experience survey, UQs, that has got some fundamental questions for students that they haven't had that we introduced this year to increase the question center on basic needs and food security. So this goes out to the entire UC population, as well as what we've had for the long-term cost of attendance survey, which develops a formula with our committee every 3 years to reevaluate the cost of attendance in UC. We'll now do once every 2 years, and we increase basic needs questions within that problem set too. And then we really wanted to better understand the issue within the Global Food Initiative. We funded a critical study, a study that to date is the largest study of quality food insecurity in the country with a 9,000 person response rate. We cannot speak about this survey because we've been told we can't. But this is video, right? Are we on video? So we'll be presenting to UC regions.
Somebody tweets that.
Yeah, no tweeting. This is not like jobs and government. Here yesterday, same thing. We're not tweeting this. So yeah, so we confirmed USDA has done aggressive modeling on it, confirmed the data, and it's a huge canary. The USDA is not concerned about the national crisis of what this model is showing because 48.3% of respondents are reporting low to very low food security using the supplemental food security question set from our census population survey. So UC is experiencing 48.3% food insecurity in students. A lot of you out here from community colleges and other parts of the country are definitely feeling that. So we can confidently say officially, food insecurity is between 24 and 72%. Because all the national studies and international from Australia, can commit to 72% of the high end. But this data is driving the next level of our work because it has to be a systemic change. Fundamentally, it's not about privilege and caring for the people that will run this country anymore. And we're committed to increasing non-traditional students and California residents in our system, and that requires a lot of cost. And a different formula for financial aid, and my friends, we're ready to do that, and we're ready to launch that in a really effective model. But with that, it involves system-wide coordination to be part of a larger system, where we need that leadership at that level, as well as campus leadership, academic and staff-based, because you can't have academics leading and telling the administrator what to do. You sure as hell can't have administrators telling faculty and the academic side what to do. So you somehow have to work that magic of getting them on the same page with common deep goal vision. And then the services are critical. We're evaluating the types of services in your campus. So we have, we have a 70-point objective list across these 5 areas that we're achieving committed to each campus in the next 2 years to fundamentally ensure students are food secure and that we're moving towards basic food and housing and basic needs security by 2020 as charged by the UC regions. And that involves off-campus partnerships. So we work with our food banks, we work with our nonprofit NGOs, we work with service agencies as well as our working groups on our campus. And we go to them as much as they come and join us. It's a both-way street. Next slide. So we've done a lot this last year and a half. We're building relationships study is not too happy that she hasn't been able to publish, articulate, or be here speaking about the results yet. Believe me when she is, she's ready to come out. Phase 2, wrapping up our year 1 implementation plans. We're convening in May for 2 days at UC Davis to prepare the next level of our work and evaluate what did all the campuses do with $75,000. Student government wanted to know. Did you put it all to staff? Did you put it into food? What is this model that we've heard about, that we've officers involved with, but we don't yet fully know? So having transparency, communication, and visibility of impact is important in this first year. Activating our advisory team, so we pulled in state government relations because of legislative bills coming in that could affect us in positive ways, such as health fresh eligibility for undocumented students, or could adversely affect us with AB 1440 by Weber 1447, which is suggesting that all campus food sites need to have health fresh EBP systems in place. And actually, when you do the costing of it, it took a year right now to get one of them officially approved because of the state regulation review process in California. One site took a year. So when I spoke to the housing director 2 weeks ago, they flipped out on me because of this policy and expectation of EBP access, because they didn't test it. So keeping people in education and practice with evaluation of policy is critical so that we can write good policy, write good legislation that is effective and means those implemented work. And so our next phase of funding today, while we're here talking on the stage, the final proposal is on the president's desk, and we're not there to articulate the main case. So we're hoping, quick and energy out there, that we'll find out when we're done here that we were awarded $3.5 billion for the 2 years of our phase as a starting point, because our model, and we costed it out, is closer to $7 million. But the train is leaving station. But the goal is that we're going to achieve an incredible, unprecedented model for us to use the system. And $3.5 million is going to get us there as a starting point. And we're going to be building partnerships to this work. And with that, Ruben and I have been traveling the country, engaging in all different networks and analysis, from residents' commitments to hunger, to research and evaluation and higher ed conferences, to our networks, student associations, to ensure that we are in step with and not out of sync with what's going on. And so we're really grateful that Sarah and Cooley and Allison, with her amazing powers of coordinating all this on top of expecting a little one soon enough. A lot of time to do. And we realized it is really about engaging and building relationships with families. So thank you all for having us out here. We really look forward to moving dialogue.
There. So, very nice over here. My name is Jen Maguire. I'm an assistant professor at Humboldt State University, and I am very honored to be here and happy that we are having all these conversations together with like-minded people. And I just think it's interesting how this work is coming together now. I met Clare when I was at work at State University, and I was working on my PhD, and she was working on launching the HSRC. And I was going to school, hustling, 3 kids on food stamps, which we call SNAP now, and just getting a real feel for what it's like to just make it work to get through school. And so, like many people have shared on this panel today, there's a very personal connection to this work, and I love that we are going across the spectrum from the personal to the political and everything that's in between. And I can absolutely I could talk personal all day. I can definitely talk policy, and I can talk about research, but what I'm going to talk about with you now is about what we're doing, getting our hands dirty on the campus at Humboldt State University, and hopefully you'll learn, I'm going to get real micro in terms of programming, and I hope you get some ideas and learn a little something in the process. I think in many places what I'll be talking about today is what's happening all over the nation, thanks much to the work of Phil. And so to give you some context on Humboldt State University, this is probably about 10 minutes from campus. We're pretty geographically isolated. We're really rural. San Francisco, the Bay Area, is about 5.5 hours south of us. If you travel north, you will just hit one small coastal community to the next, all the way up through Washington. And I-5 corridor, which is our main corridor in California, it's about 3.5 hours east of us, and then we have the ocean. So with that, when students come to HSU, they get to a place where there are not many jobs, where housing is really limited, it's very impacted, it's hard to get an affordable house. We have hundreds of students that arrive was the CalFresh Outreach Partnership Contract. And our county in Humboldt is really unique in that they don't do SNAP, CalFresh is what we call in California. They don't do outreach on their own, they reach out to community partners. And there are about 40 in the county that do CalFresh outreach. And so I applied for a contract to do that because I'm social work, we do applied work, and just getting my own, establishing my own identity on campus. And so I thought, yeah, let's apply for this, let's do a little CalFresh outreach and see what happens. I had a personal connection to the issue, and it kind of started to blow up from there. And so we started doing some CalFresh outreach, and we hired about 8 students to do that. And one thing I'm really proud of is this work as we continue to evolve and grow. We always pay our students. We found ways. We've kept 8 to 10 students on staff. We pay them between $12 and $15. And I think that's just really honoring the importance of this work and recognizing the context in which students are living in. But we got started on OSNAP, and it came from CalFresh Outreach, which was great. And so this is part of our website. Go ahead and go to the next one. And programs have started to grow quickly since then. And at the heart of this work, the students have been driving it. And they're definitely, we've developed relationships and support, administrative allies, other faculty, and we're engaged in research side by side in the process, which is actually how I met Dr. Crutchfield when she was doing her interviews across the CSU last year. We started talking about the programs that we had going, which is, launched into this bigger project. But let's go ahead and go to the next slide. I'll be going through some of these different programs. So the food pantry and CalFresh Outreach, which I'll talk about a little bit more next, is it's the heart of emergency food. Like it's been said, we have to do this work on the ground. I mean, while we're doing research and pushing policy and pushing change, there are students, so many students that are hungry right now. And so that's what we're doing with our food pantry. I do want to say one thing that I think is great, and I'm hearing more about this at other food pantries, is we work really hard to decolonize the food that we're giving out so we don't replicate that model of giving cheap food to people who don't have a lot of resources and then watching them suffer the health effects later in life, especially right now. Well, this is like, school or college is a transitional place for many students, whether you're coming in as an adult with children or you're just transitioning into adulthood. And so where we get to make those habits and learn really important ways of new ways of living, because it's that learning space. And so that's one of the things we do there. We also try to make sure that we have not only healthy food available, but lots of spices and different kinds of food, so it's culturally diverse, so it feels like it meets the needs and tastes of a wide variety of students. Okay, the next one. So this is our CalFresh outreach. Like I said, what I love about it is not only do we get benefits to students in terms of their SNAP benefits and being able to access more food, but it's created a space for these jobs on campus where we're working both from student affairs and academic affairs. They're coming together, they're getting paid, they're getting credit for courses or coursework, and they're also being able to engage in their own research, evaluation, project development, website development, leadership development, and so that they're more prepared to be positioned for good jobs after they graduate. And I can talk about CalFresh all day, but so can we all. How about the next slide? So we also have weekly cooking classes. Again, we use food that is from the food pantry as much as possible, and we use appliances that you can easily use in a dorm room, such as a crock pot or a hot plate. And there's a local chef. We bring in local food, seasonal food as much as possible from the farmer's market, and we get out and have a conversation, we eat, we cook together, and this is a great place where students can come together and learn about resources, but we're not trying to, rescue or do charity. It's about education and health and just coming together and eating. It's a great space. Another initiative that students have taken on is food recovery on our campus, and they worked with housing or with dining services to there's a lot of extra soup at the end of the day, and so they are putting it in containers and freezing it and getting it to us every day to heat it up. And we have soup and bread that's donated from the community, and again, this is in the food pantry, and so it's a really good environment to walk into. And so the next are some pictures of some of the students that are working here with us. You have Shaw and Ellie and Joe and Mira up there as the red hair. She's helping to coordinate these programs. And I just love these pictures because for me it's easy to feel to get that heavy heart when you think about student hunger or homelessness. And truly, these are resilient, amazing, profound students who are coming to the table. They made it this far. They got to college. They got through the gates. They are our gems. And so giving them what we can in terms of resources and empowering them to move through and create new change, like healthy food systems in our community, this is what those students look like. So go ahead, the next slide. There's some more pictures. We have a farm stand on campus. We work with Community Alliance for Family Farmers, and they have connected us with a local family farmer who sells us farm fresh food for a discounted price so that we can give it to students, and that's paid for with student fees, so all students have access to this food. And here's some more pictures, even more. Go ahead, I'll take the next one. And I think you have to hit this one a couple times to make all the images pop up. Fix that. So we worked a couple years with housing and dining services to get EBT on one of our campus markets. Really, it was just a lot of talk. It was my number one ask anytime I came and talked to an organization on campus about food was we need to get EBT on campus. And once the president got behind it and said we need to make this a priority, it happened over the course of a couple months. But there were challenges, and I think the challenges associated with it were, behind the scenes, figuring out how do we get this into accounting, how do we get this into the POS system that processes money. So all of that sort of bureaucracy to navigate, but it is possible. And so we have that on campus now, and that's great, so students can use their CalFresh. And then we have a shuttle that also, on the weekends, we don't have a public transportation, and so we have a shuttle that picks up at student housing and goes out to the community food pantry, which they've been an amazing partner in this process of helping train us and get our pantry off the ground, as well as to the farmers markets. And we have the Market Match program at 5 different markets, and so students can go and spend $10 and then get $10 more and can access $20 of food at 5 different markets, so potentially doubling their money for CalFresh when they do that. And then, okay, I'll just go to the next one. And so we also have campus community gardens sprouting everywhere. This is a great way to get students involved in making their own food. And that's something we hear a lot as we move more towards food sovereignty, less on dependency, which is really important for the students that I'm working with. And we have a new campus garden that we're going to have an oat snap plot in. And in this next year, we'll be piloting a program where we do education around some of the budgeting I heard. We're doing education around how do you make your CalFresh dollars go further. So say for $40 of buying plant seeds and how much food can that grow into? So $800 of food. And how do we work with students to learn how to do that? Because it's quite a lot of work to keep that up. So I'm really looking forward to that happening. And so last we have the HSU Food Alliance, and we formed this to connect stakeholders in relationship to food in our community, a couple on and off campus, and we come together and we really look at how can we build innovative partnerships at places where we haven't connected in the past. There were all these people doing amazing food work separately, and so how do we come together in our local community to make things happen? And that was how one of the big community gardens that we're kicking off is breaking ground right now. Came from a space where students came and talked to this group, and we listened because they were having so much trouble getting through all the bureaucracy, and so we brought leaders to the table, and within a couple of weeks they were breaking ground and had money to be able to get that started. And so just coming together and having conversations of how this work happens, and this is just another place where we're doing it on campus, and that's a lot of fun. Of course, we have to acknowledge our many funders, and I think that's all. That's where I will end today. We have some more speakers to share, so thank you so much for your time.
So I know we had an earlier speaker who mentioned that she was short, but I think that include community-based organizations, nonprofit organizations that have some sort of hunger relief mission, and they run food pantries, food kitchens, meal sites, and shelters. So we're essentially a distribution, operations, logistics organization that procures food and is able to provide food to these different organizations. Next slide, please. And so I kind of wanted to draw your attention to this. It's something that Dr. Edwin Hernandez was able to discuss earlier, as well as what food insecurity looks like in Texas. 17.2% of Texas households are currently food insecure. That's greater than the 14.3% food insecurity across the nation, and we're only second to California in our rate of food insecurity. Next slide, please. So what we're able to do currently is we serve about 74 million nutritious meals and feed about 800,000 people each year. We're one of the largest food banks in the nation, so for us this is definitely great that we're able to kind of meet the need in this way. Next slide, please. And so the way that we're doing it is, like I said, we work with those different community-based organizations, we work with faith-based organizations to run food pantries. We also provide SNAP application assistance to increase and stretch a family's grocery budget. We provide we use strategies like Summer Meals Program, Backpack Buddies, food pantries, senior box programs to really target local populations, like to target children, to target senior populations. Next slide, please. One of our newer strategies has been actually running mobile pantries. That's something that you guys heard a little bit about today as well. We run over 200 community food fairs a month with almost anywhere between 7,000 to 10,000 pounds of food on each food fair, with at least 55% of that being produce. Some of the things that we heard about today is, decolonizing these pantries, providing nutritious food, providing culturally relevant food. So this is something that as a food bank we're already thinking about. And what we're already trying to do is how can we up the amount of produce into communities, that's the Valley, especially when we think about the number of food deserts that exist in Houston. Next slide, please. So this is one of my favorite graphics to talk about is, like I said, we're serving 800,000 people annually in 18 counties. We're serving 74 million nutritious meals, but this is what's showing the disparity between what we're able to do and what the need actually is. So this shows, the green line shows the rate of the percent of population that's very low food security within the U.S. And the bar graph actually shows the billions of pounds distributed through the Feeding America network of food banks. And so what you can see there is that the need has grown, especially right there, 2007, 2008, when we had the Great Recession. Jim Garfield was able to talk about that yesterday. You saw this increase in need, and what we've been able to do is we've been able to increase our output, but we're still not meeting that need. Next slide, please. And so one of the reasons that we're finding that we're not able to meet the need is that we're treating the symptoms of hunger and food insecurity, but it's arising from deeper and deeper issues. So when we talk about this systemic need to address poverty, that's what we're starting to think about is how do we do that? Next slide, please. And so these are some stats that we can realize to dispel the myths of who uses emergency food assistance. The biggest thing for me over here is that 2 to 3 families that we serve have at least one working adult. So a lot of times the rhetoric that you hear in the news and within politics and policy that the people that are serving are deadbeats or they're bums, they're not doing that. That's not true. These are the families that we see that are constantly struggling to put food on the table, but they're still needing emergency food assistance. Next slide, please. And so then this, top choices. So yesterday, we had a chance to hear students talk about the tough choices that they're making between choosing for their education, between choosing to provide for their family, between putting food on the table. So the youth food bank level, we see that the clients that we serve, they're also making these tough choices. 72% of our clients are choosing between food and paying their bills. 6% of the clients that we see are choosing between putting food on the table and paying their rent, putting a roof over their head for their kids. 74% of the families that we're serving are choosing between food and medicine. So you have someone with a diabetic patient who's choosing between an insulin shot and the food that they're going to need to ensure their chronic condition isn't getting worse. Next slide, please. So for us, I kind of wanted to give you all of that because that was the context that we were existing in as a youth food bank. So the past year and a half, this is the work that I've been working on. I started at the youth food bank actually as a visitor working on health partnerships and thinking about that last statistic where 74% of the individuals that we're custodian were treated between food and medicine. So how did we start changing that? So what we were able to do about 6-7 months ago, our board finally approved this initiative. It's called Food for Change. Well, we're going to start actually looking at how can we not only increase the amount of nutritious pounds that we're putting out in the community, because emergency food assistance is something we're always going to do, but how can we also be strategic about it? How can we start addressing the reasons food insecurity and hunger are an issue in our community? Next slide, please. And actually, hit it 2 more times. There we go. So, food for change. What does food for change mean for us? What we're starting to do is we're starting to take the resource that we have, and we have groceries. That's what we have. We have a ton of food that we're able to get and put out. So what we're trying to do is how do we start partnering them with programs? And these are programs that already exist within the Houston area, already exist within our service area that provide workforce development, provide financial literacy, that provide health and wellness training, that provide educational training. How can we start working with those partners to be more strategic about supporting the individuals who are already in these programs? Can you get to that slide, please? So the food scholarship. This is the thing that I'm here really just kind of talk to you guys about. This is one of the strategies that we're using with the Food for Change initiative to start seeing change. What we're promising is, what we're committing is, if the individual is committing to any number of programs that we're able to work with, and so right now I'm going to talk about Cady College trial that we're working on. If a student is committed to one of the Cady College classes that we are working on, we're going to commit to providing up to 120 pounds of food a month. So that means 50% of that being produce, and providing them with client choice access. So whether it's a mobile pantry that they're going to, or whether it's a brick and mortar scholarship pantry that they're able to go to, they're actually able to walk through and shop and get the items that they need. So we're not telling them, oh, this is what you have to take. We're telling them, you can take what you need, you can take what you're able to go home and cook. And for us, this is the reason it becomes important is because of the things that we heard today and we've heard in the last 2 days, is that students are making these kind of trade-offs. So if I can tell you that I'm going to take care of the groceries, if I'm going to take care of the food on your table, does that mean that you no longer have the stress of that? Does that mean that I can essentially buy your time for you to stay in school to achieve the goal that you want to achieve? Next slide, please. And so the different programs that we currently are working with, like I mentioned, we're looking to work with financial stability programs, workforce development programs, housing programs, education programs, health and wellness programs. And we're at various stages in our partnerships with all these different organizations. And particularly when looking at education, that's what we're here today. We've been working with communities and schools, a nonprofit organization that provides a case management service that is able to identify the most vulnerable students at a site and be able to provide food scholarships to them. Because what they're already doing is they already are taking on the onus of resource elimination. So they're able to we're able to be strategic about providing this resource and in the area where they're already doing that, means that layering effect will actually see results. The other place that we're working on this is in 2 other community colleges, Lone Star and San Jacinto College. Next slide, please. And so, kind of going back to what we're trying to do, what we're exactly trying to do with Food for Change. We look at the current food system. What we do is we provide food to our partners, and we essentially look at outputs. We look at how many pounds of food we put out, how many nutritious meals we distribute, and how many how many people did we serve food to. We don't actually look at the impact. We aren't able to actually say, okay, we served 800,000 individuals. How many of those 800,000 individuals are now exiting the emergency food system? What are their other needs? What else have they been able to do? So what we're hoping to do, we're hoping is that now by being more strategic about the partnership that we're working with, they'll actually be able to see outcomes. They'll actually be able to say, okay, this worked. Providing the 120 pounds of food a month, that was enough. We can provide more food. Or it was more than enough. We can scale back in this way and then actually decide that we're going to have more and more partners. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And so going back to the community college project, we started in January, so it's very, very recent. And we've only started with these two community colleges, Lone Star College and San Jacinto College, but we're looking to expand this year. We've been very fortunate that we have a lot of our board support behind us because we worked really hard to kind of lay the groundwork for that. And what we were able to do is in February, we started doing distributions with about 100 students at the 2 different campuses, one with the mobile distribution and one with an on-site pantry distribution. And what we're now being able to kind of track is how many students are actually utilizing the food scholarship, how useful it is. We provide nutrition education on site as well. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to kind of show you what one of the distribution looks like. We set up the farmers market, we have our nutrition education team come out. So when we have items that are not as familiar to our students, or we hear requests, I heard the other day, like, lentils, like, why do you bring lentils? I have no idea what this is. We have someone there on staff to say, okay, this is what you do with lentils. Here we have like a Canedo tomatoes, chicken bouillon and lentils. You can go home with this and pot and make a soup. So making sure that the products that we're providing are useful, that they're healthy, and that we can actually make a difference for an individual who is looking for their goals. Next slide, please. And so what we're going to do is we are really committed to making sure that this can work. And to be able to do that, we need to make sure that the students can appropriately access these resources. And so what we're developing is a scholarship pantry network. So starting out small to begin with, within Houston, Harris County, and kind of, next slide please. And increasing the amount of spaces where we can actually go to access these resources. Even at the end of the day, when you go to a grocery store, you go to what's closest to you. And making sure that we're not creating more and more barriers to when to accessing food, when we're trying to eliminate the kind of barriers. Okay? I think I have enough on there. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, Clare. All the information that we will hear with the different partners is really going to inform the work that I do and go on.
Sumekh, and I'm the co-founder and executive director of Saifuddin. Am I okay without a mic? Okay. Essentially, you can go to the next slide. What we do is allow college students to donate the extra money from their meal plans to people in their community on and off campus that are facing hunger. As most of you know, college students who live on campus often have to buy a meal plan, and many first-year students have to live on campus. They're given between 10 to 20 meals a week, and if they don't use all of those meals by the end of that week, they roll over and accrue, and often by the end of the semester are left with hundreds of dollars in their meal plans, and they can't do anything with them besides buy crates of Gatorade or swiping all their friends or wasting on pizza, and it becomes a big area of waste. So our program gives them the chance to make another choice. The choice to think about hunger someone else is facing, to think about the resource they have on their meal card, and make a different decision. Go to the next slide. These are some of our stats. We've served over 1.2 million meals, 22,000, this is over the past 6 years. 22,000 students have chosen to donate. We're on 16 universities, and over 130 universities have asked us how to start a chapter. You can see the discrepancy between 16 and 130, and that's a testament to how challenging it is to get a chapter started. And I'll go into some of the ways that we're streamlining that process and how that's 2 and 3 times grown every year. Next slide. So this was how we started. This is my co-founder, Brian Kazeshki, who's now an MATC, moved on. Our very high-tech design side complements of Microsoft Word, asking students to go into the dining hall, buy physical sandwiches, and bring them out to us to these tables that we set up in the dining halls, and then we walked around the streets of Westwood in Los Angeles, this is at UCLA, and handed out to people we assumed were hungry and needed food. And we were getting hundreds and hundreds of meals. Eventually we started loading up our cars and driving to Skid Row, the highest density population homelessness in the country, or to Santa Monica, and handing it out to people. What happened probably towards the end of this week was a dining administrator coming over to our table where we had one of these white boxes of food, smashing the box and saying, "This is not happening on my campus, this is not allowed." And we were like, we don't understand, this is our meal point, like we can choose what we do with this, you can't tell us what to do with this, we paid for this, or my parents have paid for it, or it's financial aid has paid for this, right, it's mine. Can you go back to that slide still? Yeah, and so instead of stopping, what we did was, we got some press, we had a student, not that we asked them to, write something in the school newspaper. A student senator saw what we were doing and said, I'm going to bring my whole office and my status and help you guys get started. So we sat through months of negotiation with UCLA's dining administration and eventually started the new model, which is on the next slide. And so now this is at UCLA's basement, and we asked the school to just donate the funds. It was actually their idea. They said, we'll donate the funds, the dollars worth of each meal that a student wants to give, and we'll use it to buy non-perishable food, which we'll then donate. As you can imagine, even within that, there were some sacrifices and a lot of negotiation. So the way it worked is the student would walk up to the same table, and now there was a sheet. They would provide their basic information, including how many meal points they wanted to donate, and then the funds were taken from their account and used. We went to, at the same time, fortunately, our friend was starting a food closet on campus. And we said, well, stock your food closet. At the time, I had like a couple of things that parents in the community had donated. We said, we'll provide you every quarter with guaranteed whatever you needed us to order for you, deliver. And so we stocked the food closet. And this is in the basement surplus, because we were collecting thousands of meals. We didn't know what to do with all of this food. So if you go to the next slide, it off campus. We were feeding the need off campus, started going off campus, Sigro did submissions, food banks in the community. And at this point, we were collecting thousands of meals, and we were also posting about it on Facebook. And our friends started to hear about what we were doing, and our friends at USC, UC Santa Barbara, in the community, started asking us how they could start a chapter. So we started to replicate very slowly. Next slide. And then we got into the big times, and we came from a bunch of friends who thought we were breaking the rules, still feeling like dining is going to shut us down any day. They threatened to several times. And then moments before this photo was taken, President Obama called us a champion of change, and idealistic, begged us to stay idealistic as we grew older. So this was our national platform. We were seniors, this was finals week, the year I was graduating, and we were inundated with responses from over 40 schools asking us how they could start a chapter. So we did what we thought we should do, which is develop a big 12-page PDF and emailed it out to college students, and none of them wanted to read it. So then we started spending a lot of time on the phone, explaining our process, and how we've grown things. So this was a really big defining point for us, at least for me personally. It's no longer just something at UCLA or something in Los Angeles or something in our city, but it's something that around the nation people are resonating with. If we got that much interest in such a short amount of time, this isn't a problem or a frustration that only we're facing. Next slide. And so this is kind of where the program has evolved to today. It's no longer non-perishable food or direct food from the dining hall. It's actual money that schools are donating to the community. And I've gone back and forth between talking about donating on campus and off campus. I think this conference has reinforced this idea of universities, once they become aware of the problem, will champion this and want to be donating on campus, but maybe UPenn has a town where they have students who are in need. So our reach now has gone from a lot of UC schools in California, as well as Northwestern, University of Pennsylvania, University of Albany. We're actually at Wisconsin National in Washington. And I think the reason why the program has truly evolved, go to the next slide, is because we give our students the opportunity to really own how they run the program. We were talking about decentralization. Our model is so decentralized. If our Northwestern chapter said, we don't call it swipes, we don't call our meal points swipes, we call them points. I'm like, great, so what do you want to call your program? They said, points for a purpose. I'm like, awesome, do it. Whatever is going to make you successful and make sure more students give, you know your campus better than I do. You know how to know your community better than I do. So while we do give them insight on like, this is upstream change, and this is downstream change, and this is how you build a team, this is how you negotiate, given how you present, we give the actual creation of that to them. They have the leadership to decide how it's run, where they're doing. So this is our UC Riverside chapter president, Ruben, who said, this is awesome. We're donating a ton of money to our food bank, to the Feeding America. But we have this garden that no one actually uses anymore. And we want to revitalize it, and we want to use swipes funds to do it. I said, awesome, go ahead. So now, they every quarter, a planting day, a seeding day, harvesting day, and they get all this amazing fresh produce and donate it to the food bank on campus. And this is just one example. So for instance, our students at UCLA, we are one of the major funders of the food bank on campus, but we weren't providing fresh produce. So now our students are like, our Sundays are open. They go to the farmer's market every Sunday, clean all of their remaining produce, and bring it back on campus so that our on-campus food bank has fresh produce. At Northwestern, our students are like, some students don't have meal points and they still want to give. They want to be a part of this. So they've developed these little cards. They're 25 cents each. Instead of picking up a small candy at the register, students pick up these little cards. It charges their account 25 cents, meal plan or not, and they're a part of this. So yesterday I tweeted after someone remarked on stage about getting the campus involved. And I think that the moment we tell students when they ask us, oh, so where is this money that I'm donating going? And we say it's staying on campus for students in need, their eyes will pop out of their heads. And then they rally around this more than we even expected them to. They're not thinking, oh, my peers are actually cheating the system, which a couple do. I mean, more administrators think that students are cheating the system than the students believe. But there's such a potential power there to engage the rest of the student community in this effort. I wanted to, if you go to the next slide. Just a little bit off, but I wanted to highlight one thing, which is the meal voucher program, which is in the middle. So essentially, these are our programs that are relevant for this conversation. One is the actual swipes drive, which happens, like I mentioned, outside the tables, but now instead of building our own app, we found that a lot of universities are already doing ordering on apps. So we said, we went to all of these app companies and we said, can you just add a swipe out number as a restaurant so students can donate through the app? They're like, awesome, great. And we have Google Forms, making it as easy as possible to donate. We have between 300 and 800 students who donate at each drive. So in like a 2-day period, 800 students are coming in and donating. And then the meal voucher program is something that we started at UCLA in 2011, which we originally applied for surplus funding for, which was from student fees. And it basically gave students who were in need access into on-campus dining halls so they can have a warm, nutritious meal just like everyone else. We've been tweeting about how expensive meal plans are, and we've been talking about how food on campus is a really profit-driven thing, which is so contradictory to what the school is there for. But then schools are there to teach, so it makes sense that they outsource this. So there's this kind of like mismatch of values. And what we're hoping to do is bring this conversation to the table. Why do we have these massive multinational conglomerates coming in, running our food services, when they have zero interest in the actual students? Until a student comes to the door, they're like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be talking to you. And so we're bringing that conversation to these administrators. So the meal voucher program is something that, if there's already an office on campus that's identifying and working with students in need, then we'll just provide meal vouchers to them. But if that's not there, our students are going out and starting 80% of our chapter. I'll give a brief case study on it. They went to dining and said, we want this program. And they said, awesome, this is a great program. We'll let you collect up to 150 meal swipes a year, which is, there's 22,000 undergraduate students. They collected 150 in 1 hour, came back, and now, and over the past couple of years, it's reached up to 3,000. So, of course, as we make pushback, we always tell our students, stick with it. It's the moment you have a drive, and you have this amazing support for the program, the school will come behind you and want to support you. And we've seen that time and time again. UCLA, the same guy who smashed that box, has been on numerous phone calls with other universities boasting about the program. And so our students are leading out, for instance, at UC Santa Barbara, and wasn't an office that was identifying these students or wasn't able to handle the vouchers. Our students made a Google form and said, if you're interested in this, stop by the student center's office. And over 800 students in 1 week applied for the program, which was mind-blowing to us, to our students. The second thing I'll highlight, and obviously food closets, so now we've actually started, I think when I go to conferences, I'm always like, oh my god, how did I not know you existed? And I'm so excited to say that I knew all of these people existed, all these programs existed, which is a huge, sigh of relief, and knowing that there's so much more. But, so we've been working with a lot of schools that have food closets to say this is a funding source for you, and you're already an administrator and have sway, so why don't you just propose this and see what happens. bottom lines. One is how many meals we're providing, and secondly, how many students are being engaging. I became who I am because I had the opportunity to run this program, and time again, as we do our exit calls with our student leaders, who weren't food insecure necessarily, they've become champions and have thought how they can continue this work in the next stage of their life. We're also mobilizing around legislation, for instance, in California, 8747, which would, in essence, will you're all familiar with when a student is working, they can't necessarily apply for CalFresh or SNAP. There's a lot of work study overlap, so that would make it a lot easier to apply for funding and work. It's a benefits while you're working. Next slide. This is one of my favorite quotes, and I think everyone here would really resonate with it. I hope. It was given to me after I gave a pitch, and someone gave me feedback, and it says, "The most innovative ideas come from existing practices or resources treated in new ways." So all we did, and all what a lot of people here are doing, is seeing where are the resources, where are systems we're already a part of, how can we make this small innovation that really shifts this in a new direction. Go to the next slide. This is my contact information if anyone wants. Interesting fact, we have swipehunger.org because Swipe Out Hunger, our name is owned by the state of Wisconsin. If anyone works for SNAP at Wisconsin, the state of Wisconsin, let me know. We bought it before we did. I do want to just briefly touch on the point of getting this program started does have a lot of challenges because you have to convince an institution that's been running something for the past 10, 20 years in a certain way to shift resources in a new way. We've developed a whole kit of resources on how to pitch in a way that will get through to dining, whether it's conversion rate, so every dollar is actually only worth 20 cents, but if you're collecting thousands of meals, that's a lot of money. Or a cap, like if you know that you don't have more than $10,000 left over, great, so we'll stop at 7 or 8 or whatever works for you. So we have numerous ways to troubleshoot, and I look forward to working with you guys in the future.
So at this time, let's take questions and answers from our panelists. So if you guys can shout out your questions, and then the panelists will repeat the questions to the audience and answer it, and then speak. We're going to finish at 11:10, but we also urge all of you to continue the conversation during lunch. Anyone want to start? Yeah.
So this question is for Ruben, and I'm glad you highlighted this. So we're from Cornell University, another high tuition, high aid model that's different from what we talked about. And one population that we notice and we hire a lot that is unique that we haven't talked about a lot is partial financial aid students who maybe come from low middle to middle income, maybe family income 60 to 140,000 who now paired with tuition bills and access issues have never experienced food insecurity, didn't grow up hungry, and don't know how to navigate on the system. So we've experienced a lot of that anecdotally, and you referenced that in your slide. Is that consistent with the population you're describing?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the conversation that we're having right now. We didn't have time to go into the whole thing. We're used to doing each one of these in 90 minutes. So we had to do it in 10. So by all means, there's so much more that we can talk about. But I can tell you all this, and I'm not going to say anything that you don't know already. Working class and middle class students are struggling, and they're struggling in a way beyond just the need. It's also to be able to have these conversations. And I always tell folks, I'm here to have a very vulnerable and tough conversation in this space because it's not about low-income students only, it's about students as a whole. And I think you all need to, and it's tough, and I know this is tough, but the more that you all share your stories amongst your community, your direct students, and then bring those stories to administrators, the better progress that you're going to start making, because people need to humanize that. And also, you got to challenge some folks at a personal level. I've sat across administrators and I've had to say, what you just said is highly problematic. What you just said is actually racist. I'm not calling you a racist, your comment was racist. Or your comment was classist, or your comment was problematic in this way. And when you're talking about students, I am a Berkeley student. I'm a Fulbright alum. I got the Regents and Chancellor Scholarship that you go tell the world is the best scholarship in higher education. And now I was food insecure. And I had to find out ways to feed myself the last 10 days of every single month. And I wasn't just responsible for myself, I'm also responsible for the people that I lived with and my family back home, because I'm a human being. And I asked them, do you take care of your family? Well, of course. Then why would you not want me to take care of mine? We can talk more afterwards, because we can talk some politics, we can talk shop. I got you.
Two more questions. Yeah, you bet.
These programs also are phenomenal, and I'm wondering if you all have tips for how to get things moving, getting through the administration, getting through that experience, bringing folks together to have this conversation. I had proposed that we think of our cover beds that were redone with staff cost every year and put food in. And of course, there was the whole, safety issues and yada yada rules, and we can't get leftover food because of these rules. How do you get that conversation started?
Just really briefly, we'll be, the Global Food Initiative releasing a toolkit for food access and security work. That's 26 1 or 2 pages, from gardening to swipe to vouchers, all different models of how each of the campuses are engaging in problem solving with contacts and resources. And that'll be coming out in 2 weeks, so we have a little pushback to the big grant we're going to submit for today's review. So we'll share that with Sarah to get it out to the Hope Lab network as well. And I'll note that many other subcommittees, since there's over 26 subcommittees in GFI, and over half of them are developing toolkits, experiential learning, horticulture, sustainable ag inventories. I think, Rachel, your SWIPES program is a toolkit of some sort, and other subcommittees as well.
It's its own subcommittee.
Yeah. So there'll be a lot of resources we can share. Some are already published and some forthcoming this spring.
If you take down my email address, we literally have a sheet in our toolkit that's called Preparing for Rejection, and another one that's called University Incentives that are like very open source. You can probably apply it to any argument. It goes down to like how to leverage press, where the power exists, who to get on your team, who can make one phone call. That can make the biggest difference. So all around organizing that.
I would also add that data, demonstrating needs, demonstrating why this is important, and also collaborative, collective asks. So, we wanted to have a food program when I was working at Oregon State. We wanted to have a partnership where we were able to give food through our food pantry to students, and we were experiencing some pushback, and we got, the Student Organic Growers Club and the Sustainability Initiative and the Civic Engagement Department and the office that I was working in. And so as we started to build a coalition, it was much more likely to be listened to.
One last question.
Okay, my name is Sheena, and I'm from Tacoma Community College, and we have a situation that's going on right now that is a crisis of sorts, but I see it as an opportunity. So right now, we don't have food services on campus, so our food services people broke their contract and they left because they said they weren't making enough money because our students said the food's nasty and it costs too much. So I see this as an opportunity to do something different. So I don't need the answer right now, but if anyone has any ideas on how I can go back and blow this up with some ideas of how to do something different, because there's a vacuum right now. If we could talk offline sometime today, I'd appreciate it.
Be happy to follow up with you online.
Students should not be profit centers.
So, something that I wanted to share with you all is deep gratitude for all of you that are in this space. I'm impressed by Sarah's abilities to tweet, and she's the most impressive tweeter I've ever seen. But also, I do want to share this with you, extend just in full transparency. There's a lot of politics to this work that go beyond doing the research and the data and speaking about it, and operationalize it within the context of communities and college campuses. I would highly encourage us to have those political conversations with one another. We need to be more honest with one another, and we need to be able to say that sometimes campuses are ready to move, but there's 1 or 2 people in positions of power that are prohibiting that from happening. And we need to be real, and we need to be authentic, and we need to have the quality time to have those tough conversations. Because you can have these gatherings and phenomenal people that are doing the data, so on and so forth. But if we're not working with each other for those political barriers, we're going to continue to go in circles, and not in circles moving forward, in circles staying in the same place.
So that's a wrap up. So let's take our